What is evil? This question has plagued mankind for millennia, yet there is not one true set-in-stone definition for what constitutes its meaning. Is it something that causes fear and dread in someone? Is it something or someone who does unspeakable acts, and are these acts of a religious or social influence? Or is it simply something that we can't explain that is so far beyond what we recognize or categorize as normal behavior or influence that the only way we can define it is as of an evil origin? These questions may never be answered, but it is evident that all are correct in some sort of way when trying to ultimately define this term. In the early 1870s, evil visited southeast Kansas. A family of settlers of unknown descent, some theorize they were German, built a general store and inn on the Osage Trail just northeast of Cherryvale, Kansas. Their names were the Benders. John Sr., Kate Sr., John Jr., and Kate were the family that would live on in infamy and be forever known as the Bloody Benders. Over the course of 1872 to 1873, they were responsible for the murders of countless individuals. 11 known and close to 12 others suspected but never found. It is not known as to whether they were an actual family or just theoretical speculation. John Bender Sr., Pa, was a very stubborn man and barely spoke a lick of English, whereas John Jr. spoke English quite fluently with a very distinguishable accent. Kate Sr. and her daughter were almost the exact mirror images of John Sr. and John Jr. Kate Sr., or Ma, was a very stubborn and cruel woman who barely spoke English and whom the neighbors sought to call she-devil. Kate Jr., on the other hand, was very beautiful and spoke English perfectly. She was actually very involved in the community and known for her insights and expertise as a self-proclaimed psychic healer. The Bender's cabin, which was the last general store and stop while heading farther west on the Osage Trail, was a simple cabin with one room. The front of the cabin was set up as a general store where people could buy dry goods and supplies, and also contained a dining table where guests could enjoy a meal. The back of the cabin, which housed the living quarters, was separated by a canvas wagon cover. The so-called family would lure people in by offering them a hot meal, then murder and rob them. Their method of approach would be to make the person sit at one end of the dining table with their back to the curtain. While the person would be eating their meal, one of the men would wait behind the curtain and strike the person over the head with a hammer, and then one of the women would slit the person's throat to make sure they were in fact dead. Once the person was confirmed dead, a trap door under the subject's chair would open up and the body would be dumped into the cellar. The body would then be stripped of any possible valuables and buried on the land around the cabin. It is known that 11 murders took place on this property, but there are at least 12 others that have never been confirmed. This is the legend that has been passed down by generation to generation of the Bloody Benders and their horrible acts of murder. The purpose of the murders has never been diagnosed because among all of the bodies that were found, some had no known proof of wealth or personal belongings. It is said that the Benders did not necessarily kill for profit or fortune, but because they simply enjoyed the act of butchering and destroying people's lives. It wasn't until the spring of 1873 that things began to get out of control, as a man named George Newton Longcore and his infant daughter mysteriously went missing on a return trip home. The evidence and trail led to the Benders as the last known people to see them alive. George Newton Longcore's brother, Colonel Ed York, and Alexander M. York obtained permission to search every farmstead in the area to ascertain details as to what happened to their brother and niece. Almost overnight, the Benders seemed to have packed up and left town with all of their belongings. It wasn't until several days later that a neighbor noticed that the animals had been left unattended when the search for the Benders began. Over the next several months, the true nature of the Benders reached light and several bodies have been dug up around their cabin. There are many stories that involve the capture of the Benders, arrest of the Bender clan, and the getaway of the Bender clan. In the nature of these stories, there is no definitive proof as to what actually happened. Were they caught, killed, or did they just get away and continue to live on in the midst of evil? The world may never know, but it is known that the acts they committed while settled in southeast Kansas have shrouded the country with questions and helped to define what we all consider a mantra of the Wild West, where anything and everything can happen, and one should never trust a stranger.
Welcome to another glorious episode of your favorite podcast on the paranormal, Chumming with the Spirits, with our hosts JD, the man beyond man, OG,
me,
the Pump Master Extreme,
okay,
and me, Parajump.
The ledge.
We wanted to talk to you.
bait.
The bait. Yeah, that's actually true.
So true.
We wanted to talk to you guys tonight about a fascinating subject that's close to home that I don't think has gotten enough widestream recognition over the years, and it's the topic of the Bloody Benders from Cherryvale, Kansas. And when you talk about serial killers, that term was only coined by the FBI in like the 1950s or 60s when they did the profiling of killers and found trends among mass murderers and whatnot. But the topic of, I guess not the topic, but the personality traits of serial killers have gone back way farther than that. So when people hear the term serial killers, they automatically think John Wayne Gacy, not Ed Bundy, Ted Bundy.
Married with children. We wouldn't have blamed them.
Yeah.
No.
And when you look at it, there's a couple of mainstream ones that are predating that. You know, you think of Jack the Ripper. H.H. Holmes from Chicago during the World's Fair had the murder castle.
But that H.H. Holmes is after the Benders.
Yeah, but I'm talking predating the
biggest one's Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
Which when that was 18
mid 1800s, late 1800s. It was around the same time as it was a little before H.H. Holmes, but the Bloody Benders was from the 1860s to 70s.
Well, they for sure know it was 1870.
Yeah,
is the start of it. That's when they got into that area. But
who
knowing now with profiles and all that, more likely they were doing it well before that.
And they're in what I've read, they're the first documented serial killer family. From what I've
in the
America.
First one in America.
In America. And to this day, there's still a mystery. I think currently down in Cherryvale, Kansas, which is in Labette County, it's pretty near Joplin, Missouri. I think it's like less than an hour west of Joplin, if I'm not mistaken.
If you know what Joplin is.
Joplin, Missouri is a big city. It's where they had the tornado devastate a couple years ago. It's pretty famous for a couple of other things, but off the top of my head, I can't name them.
It's Cherryville's northwest of Independence, Missouri, or Independence, Kansas, which is Montgomery's county seat. That I actually lived there for a little bit, which is kind of odd. While I lived there, I mean, I went from first grade to like my sophomore year in high school. That was never talked about. The Bloody Benders was not anything. Now, Little House on the Prairie, Lower Ingle Wilds, Independence actually has a replica cabin of what they used to live in and all that. Cherryville, I used to go to for
parties.
Well, no, Cherryville's a really small town, but they had a bowling alley and they had leagues. So Saturday morning, my parents would take me. We'd go up to Cherryville and went bowl. Never knew anything. Like, we drove by that area. So where Bloody Benders is located is roughly 6 miles northeast of Cherryville. That land was just sold about 2 years ago. The gentleman that bought it is from Independence, and he's actually had KU come out.
Yeah, they have. They currently have archaeological
They're
excavation.
trying to find the original well, house, outhouse, and then there was a stable, the orchard, because all that has been leveled. Like all of it got totally taken out.
The notorious Bloody Bender family reportedly lived in Labette County, Kansas during the 1870s. The family is accused of the murders of 10 different people. Now, their story has only been passed down generation to generation by word of mouth and a few article clippings. However, students from Kansas University are now trying to literally dig up evidence regarding the Bender family. KOAM's Anthony Saviello has more.
Well, this is why I bought the property. I bought it for this reason here, plus it's an investment second, but primary to uncover the secrets. And KU's been wonderful to work with. They have the talent and the people and the contacts to uncover the mysteries that we're trying to seek.
Bob Miller owns this 160-acre piece of land in Labette County, a piece of land that could hold an endless amount of stories regarding the infamous Bloody Bender family. He's employed the help of anthropology students at Kansas University to uncover this land's hidden truths.
I would love to find the foundation of the cabin. That is like my goal. Perhaps we won't, and that's okay. If we find any proof that this was actually, where they were, or at least where some of it happened, it would be awesome.
These students have just begun a 10-day archaeological dig, each pair carefully analyzing everything they pull from the ground.
Material that we're finding is actually things that were in the past. It's not somebody telling somebody that this is what happened in the past. And so we're hoping to take those objects and tell a story from them, and tell a story that's then now based in the reality of what was happening. So really kind of trying to ground truth a lot of the stories that were happening, and tell people what their lives were like and what the objects we're finding were like at the same time.
Under the guidance of Lauren Norman, these students are getting hands-on in the field training while also learning the history of the area.
This is a really exciting way to tell the community what we're finding and to really illuminate the time that the people were here, and the awful things that happened here, is to kind of tie it really back to the material objects that we're finding.
The team will continue throughout the week to excavate and discover, 1 square meter at a time.
Find something meaningful and something that confirms last season. So whatever we saw on our data from last season, I would like to see something come out of it.
Reporting in Labette County, Anthony Saviello, KOAM News.
Now, Norman says she would like to see excavation continue on in the years to come. The Kansas University Anthropology Department has a survey planned for next month to discover more potential dig sites.
They're hoping to eventually do a recreation of the cabin. I didn't realize like Coffeyville at one point in time had it, and it never caught on. So
it was only open 1 day a week for like 3 hours.
Yeah, and which Coffeyville is known for the Dalton gang shootout. So that's, a lot of people know that area of Kansas was rich in oil. That's how independence came about, was the oil fields. Lead in the area. Yeah, in the waters. The Osage Trail went through there. That was actually what brought people to the Benders.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of activity in that area that kind of gets glossed over. Jesse James was in the area. The Dalton gangs were cousins to Jesse James. Yeah. Then you had the Hawkers that would, during Bloody Kansas. There's a lot of activity where we're sitting at between Kansas and Missouri that kind of got glossed over. You can go all the way down to Oklahoma or Tulsa, which they had the race riots. As the older I get, the more history I'm finding out that really wasn't talked about.
They didn't tell us anything in high school about Bloody Kansas.
Yeah,
when we talked about the Civil War, it was all Gettysburg and all that other stuff. No one touched on John Brown or
Lincoln talking at Lecompton, doing the speech there before he became president.
Yeah.
Or why is there John Moses, or was it
John Wilkes Booth?
No, not Wilkes Booth, but Brown.
John Brown.
John Brown is on our state capitol wall. Muriel doesn't really talk much about what he was, because that could be a 4-hour
next
episode.
Podcast, because I would love to talk about it.
Because there's so many battles he's been in, that the fact he lived as long as he did is amazing.
Well,
but he's very crucial to that era.
Yeah, and this is just a side note. When talking about John Brown, the huge abolitionist, he was captured and hung in, I think, Virginia or somewhere around there. And not a lot of people know that there was a person who was fascinated with him and wanted to see this guy's execution firsthand. So he stole a suit to go to the execution because he wanted to see this legend, this person. Ended up being John Wilkes Booth. I mean, history has a weird way of tying things together.
Yep.
You were saying John Wilkes Booth stole the suit to go
see John Brown.
And there's a lot of controversy about John Wilkes Booth.
There is.
A lot of people that he didn't die in that tobacco, Mark, but we can get into
that. That's a podcast for another time.
Well, and that kind of leads into the Bloody Benders. It is an unsolved mystery.
It is.
There's a ton of theories of what happened to them, but no one actually knows.
No, it's all over the place, right? How they disappeared, who they think they were. There's no real photograph evidence of what they even looked like.
Well, they didn't have photo. That wasn't mainstream back then.
No, it wasn't. But all they have is descriptions, but the descriptions were all over the wall.
Yeah,
I mean, some were saying, okay, she was absolutely gorgeous, bombshell body. She was built like a rock. And the other one saying she was scrappy, thin, and looked like a hag.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're talking about Kate,
the younger daughter. The daughter. Well, daughter. She was the daughter.
They don't know.
Yeah. They don't know who.
Yeah.
They don't know if they were actually. So before we get into who the Bloody Benders were, I wanted to kind of paint you guys a picture of what it would be like for someone to come across them during their travels along the Osage. Huh?
So you don't have any paint.
A mental picture. God damn it.
So, if you're talking about the little
I'm not gonna
that you put together.
No, I'm just gonna.
No, before you start, I would just want to say I was absolutely disgusted.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was sick to my stomach. It gave me visions I don't think I ever want to have. I'm not a guy that's mentally weak when it comes to stuff like this. It fucked me up reading this shit.
Oh, I was gonna say you weren't supposed to look at those pictures I sent. I'm just saying.
With you and JD?
Yeah.
That's going on my website. You guys can, maybe
pair of chums, $20.
I got it.
That's not wrong.
The most foul, disgusting, evil thing I've ever fucking read in my life. I was appalled. It was horrible.
And think about at the time.
Yeah.
And we're talking 1870. This area was very religious.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of vigilante justice was done. The fact that, because they did vile things. Like, it was not.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But the fact that it got after, because they had a nationwide manhunt and they were trying to find them, but it just kind of got erased from history. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a national
there's
marker.
A reason they try to erase this from history, right?
Well, but they weren't, they were immigrants that came in. They did this horrendous thing, and part of why they could get away with it was during Kansas was just newly formed. Actually, I think it was still a territory. At the time. So
I don't know. I do have a theory when we get into it about the daughter, Kate, and some of the evidence they found with some of the victims. I have a theory, so I want to throw that on you.
Spiritualist who believed that she could speak to the dead.
Yes.
Kind of tying into the podcast here. There's, and I'll be honest, that now that they're doing excavations and the person that owns the land is in Independence, I would like to be able to do just a quick road trip. It's about 3 hours from here.
It's like 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah, but the only places to really stay is Independence or Coffeyville. But because it's literally out in the middle of a field area.
You could also stay at the Brown Mansion.
Coffeyville.
You can't stay at the Brown Mansion. You can stay near there. But if you have a contact for us, stay in the Brown Mansion. But which is another large area that's reportedly haunted. But
go ahead, get to your.
OG wanted to make sure that
I just want to let you know I was completely appalled and
and
disgusted, and I had to keep researching more because the pit of my stomach was like, this is the most evil, vile thing.
But it intrigued you too.
Well, the only thing that intrigued me was some of the high-profile characters that crossed their path, and that's like, okay, I want to read for that. I'm going to put this away because my mind and heart can't take that.
Well, and how they figured out how they were killing people is not from direct evidence, but from other people coming back later, stating that they had stayed and had this happen and had this happen.
Escaped, right.
Escaped, not realizing.
Well, they really escaped.
Yeah.
So, let's paint a picture for the audience. The whole 4 people that are watching us.
Shout out to Brussels. Who downloads
Germany.
That downloads 5 episodes.
Thank you.
So imagine mid-1800s, mid-late 1800s. You're traveling down the Osage Trail. You are in need of supplies.
You're going to put a picture up of where the Osage Trail went?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
AI that bitch. Right.
It's going to end up in Canada.
Yeah, it's going to be in Brussels. Brussels! Yes.
With 7 fingers.
Yeah.
Canada with 7 fingers. You're in need of supplies, rest, a warm meal. You come across the last stop before the end of the Osage Trail to where you can get all that accomplished. You order your supplies from the person at the counter, sit down in a one-room cabin that is partitioned with a sheet, basically.
They think it was the canvas off a covered wagon.
Yeah.
And it was only 24 foot long by like 14 foot wide.
Yeah, not a very big room.
But keep in mind, if you ever saw the original Little House on the Prairie's actual building that they lived in, that was like a 6 by 8 foot building. So, I mean, we think of it as small. The reality of it is back then...
It was a mansion.
Yeah, that was a pretty big. The guests would eat up front, they would sleep up front, and the family would stay behind the...
Yeah. But imagine yourself sitting down with your back against the canvas, eating a warm meal, and all of a sudden you get knocked upon the head from the back with a massive hammer. Knocked unconscious, but still not unconscious, but knocked out enough that you can't really defend yourself. And someone comes from behind the curtain, slits your throat, and then pulls a lever that opens a chute under your chair that drops you into a pit. They rob you of all your valuables, cut you up,
strip you down to your shirt.
Yeah, at least leave an undershirt on.
Yeah, they did that.
That was a little weird. Find that out.
Cut you up and drop parts of you in a well and bury the others on the property.
Yeah.
Well, also that's just what they know of. There were reports of multiple bodies and people and weird, people found with very similar wounds in that, with throat slit, head bashed in, on the trail in other areas.
Yep. Yes. In the creeks.
In the creeks.
They found 2 in the creek.
And that some of it was just that people don't understand, but the Osage Trail did have Native Americans.
Wild territory, right?
Yeah. There was highway robbers. Yep. There were Native Americans disputing over land. I mean, so they didn't think much about it, but now with today's knowledge of how people act in that, they know. I think they found it like 9 bodies on the land, but
11 altogether.
But there's multiple before.
Oh yeah,
and that's part of the reason
that wasn't buried.
Possibly be
these were bodies before they got smart to start burying them.
Exactly.
Well, and they kind of bring that up is that's part of the reason why they're trying to find the orchard and the pig pen and all that, because those areas really wasn't searched because people just kind of checked the areas that were already freshly.
Now I want to get your guys' opinion. What popular story, English story, and they made a musical out of it, does that remind you of?
I mean, the Pop Goes the Weasel?
No.
Oh.
The way they murdered people in the cabin.
I can't think of anything because I'm just so offended. I mean, we're talking about Psycho or something like that, but
Sweeney Todd.
Okay, well.
So I had it
slit the throat
open and pull the barber chair lever, and they drop down into the basement pit, and then she would.
I don't think it was. From what I've read, and you're more. I mean, you're probably 100% on. I could be my understanding, my taking my research is that they were hit with a heavy hammer and it actually crushed their skull, which that means they were fucked up, like you were saying. The skull was caved in.
Yeah.
They think as soon as that was done, young Kate was probably entertaining and would quickly grab because she was cooking and cut them neck, from ear to ear. Then they would drag it over to where they had a hidden door in the basement and turn it down and let them bleed out there.
The hatch and the drop is actually a different family murderers called the Kellys that were in the Panhandle of Oklahoma.
No shit.
Yeah, they get blended.
So what time period was that?
It was like 15 years after the Bloody Benders. There was some theory that they were the same family because it was a mother, father, son, and daughter. But the problem is the ages don't line up. Meaning, 15 years later, the young Kate would have been older,
right?
And the way they talk to him, which hard to say because everybody looks rough. If you shave your beard off, you may look 10 years younger.
Well, and that's how there was no identification back then.
No.
You get a haircut, shave, and change your clothes. You move 2 towns over.
But they did a very similar.
No one knows who you are.
They would knock them in the head, drop them into a pit, and then they would kill them with an axe.
Interesting.
So it's the family was called the Kellys family. That also not very well known.
I've never heard of them.
But it was the Panhandle of Oklahoma.
Well,
which is
that is like the Bermuda Triangle. Nothing happens in the Panhandle of Oklahoma.
Well, back then it was just known as the Wild Territory.
Yeah, that was all Indian.
It was all
territory.
Indian territory. You're going out. That's where robbers and thieves would go to get away from the law. The only guy that would hunt them down that was Bass.
Yeah, Bass, and
who the Lone Ranger was
based off of.
Depicted off of, right? That's why you got the black mask because he was actually Bass Reeves, I believe his name was. He was a black man, and so the black mask on the Lone Ranger is a tribute to him as a black man, but he was the guy.
I'm just joking.
That was television back in the day.
Yeah, well, they just made a TV series on him.
On Bass Reeves.
Yeah.
I would love to watch it.
It's really good.
But
he had a hell of a life.
That's a bad man. But he knew he had to be better than everybody else. But we're getting on subject. I don't mean to be.
But that's that territory is like.
Isn't that in the new iteration of the Magnificent 12, Denzel Washington? I don't think it's his name, but I think that's the character that
he
was
is based off of Bass Reeves.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
What I would like to get into is like some of the corpses of the men that they dug up had mutilated genitalia, and I get that because of young Kate started getting a lot of attention because she was telling people about free love. Come here, you're going to get free love. Meaning she's going to give up the ass, she's going to give the booty, which would attract men.
Yep.
So my thing is, if men were going, this is the research I've done.
I've not heard this.
I heard it.
There was multiple mutilation. The worst one was not the mutilation, was the 11-year-old that was buried with her father.
Yeah, with her hands, and they buried alive.
Yeah.
Her hands were gloved over, so
she had her mittens on.
Yeah,
and they when they unburied her, she had mud in her mittens grabbing because she was trying to. So that's why they think she was buried alive.
So I think the guys that were going to go get some ass, if you will, if I can say that, I don't know if I can. Maybe we have to bleep it out, or to go score
some poontang.
So she was giving them free love. Those guys are the ones that got their genitalia mutilated. That's my theory on it.
I think that's probably a good theory.
Yeah, because you're twisted. You're like, okay, you sick son. You try to come over. You want to whatever.
So do you think maybe she was keeping them as like trophies or something?
Or
hiding the evidence?
No, they were mutilated. When they talk about it, they were just cut up and just disfigured.
Not just cut off.
Cut off.
Okay. It's just tortured.
Okay.
That way, whether they were dead when it happened or not, I don't know. But I'm just the stuff I read was just so absolutely evil and disgusting. And I know there's evil people out there. I know, but I wasn't prepared.
I think
especially at that, you think about that time frame, and that was just
that shit didn't happen. That
we know of, right?
Well, I think what it comes down to is because of how desolate that area is. That's why a lot of those things don't come out. Like there could have been hundreds of them, but it was so common for somebody to be taken off a horse by a bear, Indian, whatever.
And I think what really kind of clocked their clock. I don't know what I'm talking about, but gave them up was the high profile person that went missing.
the colonel's brother, the doctor.
Yeah.
That was the end of it.
Well, not only that, but you had John Wesley Hardin, a famous gunslinger,
Yeah.
who would not talk about it, but his family talked about how he dropped in and that he just felt something odd. I don't think it was him, but it was another guy that turned around. He felt like someone was coming on and he caught someone.
No, that was a different group. So John Wesley Harding, his story, they told. So it's all hearsay because it was his family talking.
Yeah,
about
because
it.
John didn't say put it in his book.
Yeah, and Harding, you have to take him with a grain of salt. He had a lot of tall tales. Like he
was a gunslinger. I mean, most of their stuff was tall tales.
Yeah,
of what they
yes,
did.
I mean 'cause there's stories of him and Wild Bill Hickok in Abilene, Kansas. But anyways, his story is they were sitting there as him and somebody else was traveling. They were heading back down to Texas, and they seated him with their back to the canvas, and he got an uneasy feeling.
Right.
And he moved his plate to the other side, and then nothing happened with him being on that other side.
That's right.
There was another gentleman that after the stories came out, he was like, well, now that you mention it, he goes, I had stayed there. I was sitting there. He goes, I had heard something and turned, and he couldn't remember if it was the junior or senior, but they had a hammer in their hand.
Walking toward him.
Yeah, walking
When his
towards
back
him.
was
And he
turned.
was like, oh, I'm just fixing this nail over there. And he goes, well, fix that nail away from me then. And he left. Well, then he started put two together.
Right.
And then that was the other thing they mentioned. Like when they finally got into the cabin, the cellar was a mess, but there were multiple gunshots in the ceiling.
Oh, I didn't read that.
So that before they tore it down, like they had realized that some of these people
fought back,
got hit, and they're just shooting, and so there was gunshots in the roof and some other stuff. They said the walls looked like it had like mold or fungus growing on it, and it was because it was just covered with blood.
Yeah, the down cellar where they let them lay down, there was many, not just one spot, but
it was all
over, right?
Yeah,
I remember reading that the colonel's brother went missing, and the colonel was looking into, and that was the last stop. But the reason that they were suspected was because one of the residents of Cherryvale mentioned that there was a horrible smell coming from the house.
Yeah.
And then they finally looked into it.
Slaughterhouse or something like that.
So the colonel came through looking for his brother.
And they weren't there.
Well, no, the colonel came through. They were there. They actually talked to him.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the mom said, hey, he wasn't here. And then they kind of got rough with him, and Kate said, well, yes, he was here. She goes, I served him some food and whatever, and he left. So she corroborated that he had been here, but he had left like over a month ago.
Because they were heading back to Independence, right?
But during that,
no, he was heading back to
Independence, Missouri.
Yeah, he was heading back to Eastern.
Kansas City area.
During that conversation, because she didn't speak English well, she lost her cool and got angry with him and started cussing and swearing at him and cursing him in English. And like, you just blew your cover. You know exactly what we're talking about. So when they left, they just knew that these people something was up. And I don't want to finish the story, but when they came back, they were gone. The only thing that was left was the German Bible, a hammer, and a knife.
Oh no, there's like three hammers found. And
was it
a knife.
3 hammers?
Yeah.
And I knew the knife.
They're in the
and
museum.
a Bible. I knew
and
a German Bible.
Well, so what was weird about that? They met with them. The colonel talked to her and said, "Well, you're known as a spiritualist, Kate. Why don't you tell us?"
Well, she offered that.
Yeah, she offered
for a fee, though.
Yeah, and then said,
"I'll help you. Yeah. I'm gonna make more money off the people I just killed and took money out." I mean,
well, and
one
he was also
wealth, though, right?
It ended up the colonel ended up offering up to $2,000 back then, which is like millions of dollars. I mean, that is life changing money back then.
Actually, that was $50,000.
Was it only 50?
That's only $50,000. Yeah, so it's 50,
Still life changing for some people.
yeah. So it's actually 50 grand. Because I did the calculation, look it up, but it was so $2,000 and it was like 50 grand these days. But it was a lot of money just to find these people.
Yep.
And it was the governor of Kansas, I thought, put that out.
So the governor put 1,000, and then the colonel also put 1,000.
Was that what it was?
It was a
Okay.
combination of the two.
Like I said, I only studied for 2 days, so
Yeah.
I don't.
So the colonel and them go talk to him. She gives him some BS deal about there's too many men around. Why don't you come back by yourself? And without all these people, and I might be able to figure that out. Well, they end up leaving. They end up checking the trails. A neighbor comes by.
It smells.
Notices nobody's there. That like there's a cow that had died from starvation that was tied up, and a pig.
And they were all the other livestock was starving as well. They could tell.
But the wagon was gone, their horses were gone. He couldn't see anything in the building, but it was locked. So he left, came back with people. They broke in. That's when they found all the stuff. They notified the colonel. They got the colonel. He came back. And that's when they went into the basement.
But it took him a couple of days because the weather was kind of bad.
Yeah,
at that time.
and they were also kind of trying.
They didn't give a timeline, so I'm thinking a couple of days. So it might have been like 5 or 6.
It could have been a
right?
month.
Yeah.
I mean, because of the timeline. But when the colonel comes back, he had found his brother's glasses and ID'd the glasses were his.
Shit.
And then they started looking and they found a fresh depression.
And it was the first one they found.
He was the first one they found was his brother.
By the time they found
technically, I think the brother was like the brother was probably the last one they killed at that location.
Yeah.
Because the minute that happened, he didn't show up. The colonel had the resources and the people and the money to start looking, and that's what spooked them. That's when they left, and that was like 1873.
It was the fall of 1872.
So
what happened? So there's many theories, but they did track them down.
I think he wants to cover a few of those.
Before we get into the disappearance and the end of an era for a serial killer family.
We're not talking about the Motley Crue concert either. Sorry, end of the outro. My bad.
I wanted to go into a little bit more of a discussion and description of the individuals themselves. Okay?
Which is varied, depending on who you...
Yeah. But you brought up a very good point that the mutilations and stuff could be tied to Kate, the supposed daughter of the Bender family.
Yeah, who was a spiritualist who supposedly could talk
Do you
to
think
dead.
There could be
open free love.
Yeah,
which is so a lot of people don't understand free love back then. This wasn't the 70s and 60s.
There was no LSD. There was no.
That was very not common, other than unless you were in a whorehouse.
Yeah,
and that wasn't free.
Yeah, that wasn't free.
Yeah.
Do you think that there could be any connection, knowing that they were of German descent, where German had a lot of back in the day witchcraft and whatnot? Do you think there could be any correlation that the mutilations could have been her for either like spiritual, ritualistic, satanic?
Wow, that's really good.
I think it'd be speculation, but without the actual death,
as sick as they are, they were looking for any excuse to do what they wanted to these victims.
And that's another good point, because I've read that. They thought it was almost a crime of passion that they did this, because not all of the bodies that were found had their valuables taken from them.
The most of
it was though.
Most of them had, not all of them, but most of them were all left with an undershirt, which is odd.
You don't know, someone that's that sick in mind, you don't know what's going on in their body. Like, oh, let's not kill the little girl. Let's give her a chance to dig herself out. Now, you don't know what their mind is.
Now, do you think it's also possible that they could have been an actual immigrant family, like actually related to one another, mother, daughter, father, son, that it was the adults that were perpetrating this, but the children didn't necessarily want to do it? They were just forced into it?
Nah, because back then, I mean, you're talking about...
because she was well known and loved in the community as a spiritualist,
and so was the
son.
The son was also known as kind of slow,
but it was a nice guy, but with a quick temper.
Yeah,
and he's supposed to be a masculine built guy.
Yeah. But they were known in Cherryvale well known.
Yeah, but the parents weren't.
No, the parents were.
She was known
yeah.
as a bitch.
Well, they were
And
angry people.
Yeah.
The dad was. She had a very quick temper, and the dad, which is the problem, is the descriptions. Like some say he was towering 6 foot plus. Some say I was just a scrawny guy, and that's where it kind of gets into a problem. It's probably why they couldn't figure out where they went, because the descriptions of everybody varied. Some said Kate was a blonde. Some said she was a redhead. Could have been a strawberry blonde, depending on.
She was a redhead. I would have given it.
I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason why they got so many people.
Yeah,
I mean, there's.
No. She was bait.
I mean,
plus they had a perfect setup though.
Yeah,
right?
they had a storefront. They had a stop, because a lot of people don't realize, like,
kind of Rob Zombie-ish.
Yeah,
kind of movie.
very very Rob Zombie-ish.
Yeah,
like, I mean, it could easily,
yeah,
as a family,
like that, right?
But
that's awesome.
But when you look at that area, like, people don't understand, like, a horse travels, like, unless you're running it hard, does 15 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So you're not traveling a huge amount of distance.
No.
So them being 6 miles out of town, that's a half-hour ride minimum just to get to them. That's why people don't go there very often. And when you're in a trail, there's not signs, like street signs and all that are fairly modern. Like, you don't know, like, it's 6 miles to Cherryvale, it's another 14 miles to Independence. That's an hour or more, and depending on the weather.
If you're off 1 degree, you're...
Yeah, I mean, well, that's why people stuck to these trails, because they'd been worn in by wagons, and you could follow that trail, so you didn't deviate from that very much. And you might have a map saying, but depending on if it's almost dark, you really don't want to be sitting out in the middle and with a campfire. So, like, they had the perfect, a young woman, free love. They had supplies, which half of it was probably taken from other people.
Yeah.
That warm food,
absolutely.
And they were near a town.
Who knows what you're eating, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Sweeney Todd, they could be eating meat pies.
Even if we want to go on. So you're asking these questions, and I think they're great questions. But
so I have another one.
Well, and that's why I want to get back to you. I don't know if anybody can answer what you're asking.
No, they can't. I just want to get your interpretation.
The twisted mind of a serial killer or serial killing family. By the way, they don't think the junior Bender was actually, he was another person. I think Herbert or Headache.
They weren't sure, but
they
they think he was common law married to Kate.
Yeah, Robert Headache or something. Yeah. I don't remember. But again, I apologize. Only I had 2 days to look at this.
Even if you had multiple, even a week or more, there is still so much unknown, and there's tons of books on them, but they all have different theories. Like, there's no definitive answer to if they were a family, if not. Like, one of the arguments is that their real name, because Bender's is a very common German name.
It is. Yeah. They don't even know.
And it could all been incense.
How many people were done in. Like, they're still excavating.
No. So back to your... I don't know.
Okay. That's fair.
I think they're just it's just reading what they did. It's just so sick and so just disgusting to me. So I don't know, buddy, but I know you have another question.
Yeah. So going on what you were just saying, how when you were reading and looking into this, that it just turned your stomach and made you disgusted.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's any possibility whatsoever that there could have been I almost said it, demonic activity at play?
I think they were just crazy. Is there a possibility? Yes, but
of course
without
there's a possibility of that, but I think they're just batshit crazy lunatics that kill people. And they had a system.
The lead.
They had a location.
I know you were gonna.
They had a well. And the well got covered up. So the problem with the well water in southeast Kansas, well, pretty much eastern Kansas in general, you have to have your water tested. There are large lead deposits.
Yeah, it's all tainted.
And I've often wondered for the amount of activity, because like when you start getting into when the Mormons came and the massacres of that, the bloody Kansas, I wonder how much of it wasn't Jayhawkers. Well, you had the Red Legs from Missouri. Red Pants, Jesse James raiding in the area. I wonder how much of that wasn't minor lead poisoning from people drinking the water.
Well, it could be, but
because it induces madness if you get too much.
Yeah.
people went through a lot of traumatic things back in those days.
Yeah, I mean, all this stacks
if,
up.
If you want to talk
a
about
couple
Jesse
de-
James, what he saw with his father, how he was abused, and what he became.
Well,
and
how he saw the Union soldiers
and
coming
his mom
through.
lost her arm, and
Yeah.
I mean, there's as a child. I mean, that's traumatic.
Well, and this is all during the same time frame because the Civil War was from 1861 to 1864,
No, it was longer than that.
67.
I think it was like 67 or 68.
Anyways,
we'll get back with you guys on that.
We'll get back on the dates, but
we'll fix it.
all this. So you had Bloody Kansas
I know it
beforehand.
happened in America.
Yeah. You have Bloody Kansas,
some of our college students
Civil
face.
War, the Benders. You have the Mormons in the same time frame. I mean, there was a lot of activity between the battles too in the area.
Yeah, I look at it as it's almost the perfect breeding ground. So who's to say? I don't know. I haven't done any of the research. It would be interesting to do and see if there's any correlation. But who's to say that these 4 immigrants from Germany were not able to accomplish what they wanted to out of their life because there was a lot more laws in Germany and everything. There's really, back in that time, was a really well developed European country as opposed to the Wild West. They migrate over here, open country, free reign, no laws, outlaw justice. It's like they just fucking hit the lottery.
Well, and that was what's compelling to me. That's what drew me in because of the John Wesley Hardin, Laura Ingalls' father, supposedly part of a posse.
Yeah, but that got disproved later.
Yeah, so I'm just saying there were just so many names thrown around there. So that's what But so we haven't told people who the Benders were. Well, their first names are. Do we want to get into that?
Well, we don't really know.
But the names that we know them by.
Sure, go ahead.
So it's
How about it?
Kate Bender.
It was Kate Bender, John Jr.,
right.
and then Elvira, but she also went by. There's a lot of sightings that instead of Elvira, it was Elmira.
Right. And supposedly the women moved to Colorado. One of the stories, they went to Colorado. By the way, that's where Doc Holliday is buried. And behind his tombstone is...
Seen it in Deadwood.
That's not Deadwood.
Yeah.
That's Wild Bill Hickok.
Okay, I saw that one.
So behind Doc Holliday's grave, in the same grave, right directly behind
it's Kate Bender.
It's Kate Bender.
But she was like a peer in the community and all that. They don't think it's the same.
But the other one's John Bender as well, right next to her.
But look at it. In the 1800s, John and Kate were two of the most well-known names.
And Bender was a very popular name. And
yeah.
The other problem is, like, if you're on the run, why would you keep with the same name?
Exactly.
Because all you have to do is just say your name's this. You don't have any.
Absolutely.
There's no proof or documents.
That's right.
Because there's also a story that the one of the posses actually did hunt them down and caught them near a river and hung them from a tree.
Lynched them and burned
Lynched
their
them
body.
and burned them. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope to God that happened.
Yeah. I mean,
I shouldn't say that. I should say I hope to get. I
hope they got justice.
What we do know is they're not around now.
Yeah.
But I do hope as they're burning. You know what?
So
I'll cut that part out.
I want to throw an interesting theory out at you. Ooh,
Besides the demonic possession.
Real quick.
Yeah.
I want to point out, at the time, this was a nationwide search for them. When they actually found the glasses, that started there's records of the mayor of Kansas, or the governor of Kansas, sending a letter to New York saying that the
I thought he was going to fall all the way in here
to stop him from boarding a vessel going back to Germany. Well, technically France. It was big enough that John Wesley Harding's family mentioned it. Ingle Wilder, she made a story up, and they think it's made up because the time frame, they had already moved by the time that manhunt happened. So it was very sensationalized in the 1870s to 1890s, and then it just disappears.
Yeah.
Like I said, I grew up in that area, 14 miles away from where I had no idea. It wasn't until after I had left, and I was trying to think. was doing something and came across the story on it. Actually, I think it was because I was researching Bloody Kansas, all the stuff, and they came up, and I'm like,
Because of the word bloody.
yeah, because of bloody, and it was bloody benders. I'm like, huh, that's kind of weird, because then it's like they're one of the first serial killer families. They were
In documented history.
in documented history and in the United States that they had never, and this is before the word serial killer had ever been used. They and the amount of people was minimum, what was it, 11?
Yeah, 11.
That they
That
documented.
they found in the garden, in the garden area.
All the area. But
Yeah.
they now know there's stories of other bodies being found well before.
Yeah.
And who knows, because they didn't track how well people died. And if somebody was out there long enough to skeletonize, other than the hit in the back of the head,
Right.
if the head's still there.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying is like we went from this massive manhunt for people
To nothing.
to nothing. And it just dropped off.
So this is just a hypothetical because I don't believe it's true, but I have to play devil's advocate in this
You don't have to.
situation. Well, I'm going to. Is it a possibility? Okay. Is it a possibility that this family was not actually a family of serial killers and committing crimes and murdering people, but what they had done was out of self-defense in people that were coming by and staying there trying to rob them, trying to rape them, trying to hurt them, and it finally caught up to them and they were like, well, shit, we can't hide because we haven't notified anybody about these atrocities that people have committed and we had to defend ourselves, that they just fled.
Yeah.
I know it's way out in left field.
The problem is some of the prominent people that they found, like the doctor was well respected, well known.
Yeah.
There was another one that he was a widower that had his 11-year-old child with him, and they killed him and buried her
And the
alive.
child, yeah.
But most offenses are not the same thing over and over
again.
Crushed in head,
I know.
slit ear to ear.
Like I said, I'm just playing devil's
No,
advocate.
I think you got a family of freaking nut jobs that are just
I'll be honest.
absolutely evil.
They realized, to me, what they probably realized is they maybe that was something that happened the first time, like it was accidental or whatever.
And they got addicted.
And well, they got all the money off.
Yeah,
them.
money.
They cleaned the clothes up.
Yeah.
And nothing came about. And then, well, you're on this trail. If people aren't stopping by,
No one's gonna know.
no one's going to know. Well, you gotta survive somehow. So you do this every third person or
Well, think
so.
about it, they're raking in money. How much money they're raking in? Not only possessions
Yeah.
that they can go sell, but what else are they getting out of it?
Well, and
it's
keep-
better than like a 25 cents for a meal.
Well, keep in
Right.
mind, like if you're traveling, if you're on that trail,
Well, most people traveling are going to have money. They're going to have
Yeah, they're gonna have
all their
possessions
stuff
and-
on
yes.
them and their money.
That, and not only that, but they may not be having to butcher their cows and pigs to feed these people. The people are feeding themselves.
Right. Well, right.
I mean, so it's free money.
So those guys might, someone's going by with a family, they might have a couple $100 on them. That's a lot of money back
Yeah.
there. Not counting their possession because they're moving. They're,
Watches, guns.
They're loaded up their truck like we would a U-Haul, and they're moving across. Hey, let's stop at a diner, get something real quick.
So if they are in fact not blood related, would you consider? Yeah, no tap, Larry. My name, Paratone.
Larry's the ghost.
If they're not blood related, do you think that they could possibly be considered one of the first cults?
No, cults have been around way longer than that.
Okay.
Yeah, Hellfire Club, shit like that.
That was the
Pre-Civil
1900s.
No, Hellfire Club was pre-Civil War. Benjamin Franklin was supposedly a member.
I'm thinking Stranger Things. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Roll a 20, Larry. Roll your 20.
He just rolled it and he got a 2.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
You dropped
I
your
just got
weapon.
killed. I just got killed with a goblin with a resurrection stone on his toe.
Yeah. But no, I mean, as a cult, cults have been around for a lot longer than that. If they weren't blood related, I mean, they're still a serial killer. Technically, it's a family anyways, because like the Ma and Pa Bender, they were known to be a couple. It's the question whether or not the two kids were truly kids. They think Kate was one of their daughters.
Right.
But they don't know if it's their daughter or was the mom's daughter or the father's daughter. The junior is the one that a lot of them are like, well, I don't know if he was really a junior.
Yeah, they think they took the name over.
Yeah.
Instead of a couple, is it a possibility that they could have been a quadruple?
Could have. There's a possibility if, anything was possible back then.
I mean,
well, the only thing we know of for sure are those 4.
Yeah.
That's the only thing we know for sure.
It is weird, though. Like I said, like the Kelly family was the same. But, I mean, you only got a certain amount of combinations.
yeah, because there's also correlation that...
But not causation.
There's a smaller town kind of close called Galena. I don't know if you've ever heard of Galena, next to Baxter Springs.
Yeah.
But there was a bordello there, and the lady that ran the bordello was basically the exact description of Elmira, thinking that it could have been her, and she was murdering people that came into the bordello.
There's also a story that they think that Elvira may have died back in Germany.
Yeah.
Because there's a story of...
She's a zombie?
Well, no. When she died alone, and they had in the newspaper reaching out to anybody that was a family member to collect her possessions.
Oh.
That's the only one that's been researched that there's a... It's probably a 50-50 chance it's the same one, because it mentioned her husband, John, and kids, but she died alone in Germany in like 1890 something.
So you're talking early.
I came across that. Yeah.
So you're talking early identity theft, is what you're talking about. Like someone claims that they knew her, took the possessions, and then
No.
They think it was
she
her.
died.
But
they were trying to get her possessions to her nearest kin by notifying them through the newspaper. That's how you had to do it back then. You died.
Yeah, but then how could she have been in Kansas if she died?
No, this is 1890.
Oh, I thought you said before.
No.
I apologize.
Yeah, nope. Nope, it's not
Maths weren't mathing.
Yeah, I think they had identity theft all over the place. Like I said, there's no proof that they were actually benders.
And see, I personally lend to the fact that they were worshiping and doing satanic rituals with the bodies and whatnot.
You know what? And that could be, but I do know that the younger John and Kate would frequent church in the area. Hey, you got to put up appearances,
smoke
right?
screens,
yeah, you got to put up appearances. So I don't know. I wouldn't discount any of that, Larry. But we cannot. Well, yeah, that's what his name is, right? And you're Parachum. You're not the doppelganger, Larry, are you?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
But we definitely know Parachum would have been a victim if she'd been redheaded.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Another sick individual. To extreme.
How does that make me sick?
I'll be perfectly honest.
Completely obsessed.
If we were traveling together, it wouldn't have happened because I don't like anything behind me. So I would never set with a
curtain back.
I would have been victim still.
No, they were. That was one of the things is they wouldn't attack somebody if somebody else is in the room, unless they were both. They could hit them at the same time. They weren't.
Oh, so both sitting on the same side.
Well, he wouldn't let me shoot at a Bigfoot to prove Bigfoot exists either. So there you go.
No.
But I don't have a problem shooting people. Bigfoot's a different story.
I'm just saying, you're not going to let him do that.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to go out there right
because other people that you can't see out there can't fuck you up like other Bigfoot can.
Well, you saw Jurassic Park. Clever girl.
Yeah.
That's what I would be worrying about. It's not that the fact that you would kill it.
Right.
It's the fact of what the other two are going to do to us.
Yeah, we're not making it out, Dave. Or one of us is not going to make it out, Dave.
Yeah. So let's take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll go into the serial killer profiling aspect of everything.
Oh, wow. I'm not ready for that. Okay.
And
well, they did actually. They had a profile.
Yeah. And then discuss how they would have been categorized, and then their escape and some of the theories and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I'm interested to hear this.
So we'll be back. And
they're going to clackety clack.
Clickety clack.
Clickety clack.
Right. We'll be right the fuck back.
Right back.
Welcome back, everybody. We went and did our thing. Came back, got our drinks.
which we didn't toast, by the way. I don't hope you guys.
By the way,
Oh, no, we didn't.
what are we drinking tonight, JD?
We are currently drinking Buffalo Trace.
I'm not.
Some of us have taste.
I'm drinking candy corn flavored whiskey.
Some people like type 2 diabetes. Because I'll be honest, that actually sounds really good. Like, I've tasted
really good.
the candy corn tastes like candy corn. I mean, it's like liquid candy corn.
Yeah.
But I could maybe have one shot of that, and then that's just
And
way
then
too
done,
much.
right?
Yeah, because
Oh,
it's just so
absolutely.
sweet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I am, and you guys make fun of me all the time. I am not a alcohol drinker.
No.
Even though I've gained 7 pounds since doing this with you guys.
You've been bulking up, man.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's both
I've
things.
been going heavy on my sets. No. I found myself craving Blackberry Crown and awful Buffalo Trace. This is my 3rd bottle in 2 weeks. Am I an alcoholic?
No.
I'm not.
It stops when he looks at it.
So,
So-
no, but
That was fucking hilarious.
Go ahead.
what you're dealing with is you're developing your taste buds,
Palate.
your palate of, because you like Buffalo Trace to me is a very good entry whiskey. It's their entry line. It's like their Jack Daniels. But if you're gonna pick one like Jack, Jim Beam, even I'd throw Makers. Buffalo Trace is really smooth.
Yeah, Makers is not bad.
No, Makers is not bad. Bullet, I like Bullet. There's a bunch of them that you can get in that normally below $30 bottle range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Normally.
Yeah. But some people don't understand that there's different prices at different locations.
Yeah, you gotta.
And I paid
shop.
twice as much than I should have for this.
Yeah.
Well,
But
when you walk in and ask for it, and the guy behind the counter goes, "Why does everybody like this so much?" That's a cue that he's probably going to charge you more than normal.
Or let
And
me
it
go
went on his shelf, by the way.
Yeah,
He
let
went
me
in the back room.
go in the back and check.
Yeah.
That's a good indicator. Like, let me see your price first, because there's MSRP, which is what it's sold for from the factory, what they recommend, and then there's secondary markets. Secondary markets where everything gets really crazy.
And if people don't know what MSRP stands for, it means manufacturer's sale retail price.
Look at Parachum go.
Which we're selling our new Parachon, though. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should mark it.
Yeah.
We can just buy the normal ones and put like a label on it, put a shark on it. Let's do that.
Actually, I could laser engrave our logos on that.
We're geniuses.
Yeah. Put that right up there. Right in the mouth of. That way we can't see it.
So you can rest easy.
So we quit recording what's going on out there for some reason. Just took too much time to set it up, I guess.
Or we just forgot.
No, I mean, I can set it up if you want. I sometimes wonder if you want me to or not.
Well, of course I want to see it.
Until he sees it.
So when we take the break, I'll set it up for either probably my iPad out there, and we'll record. So what we're talking about is we're kind of crossing a minor line. It is not recommended to investigate your own house. So I prefer to investigate my friends.
I have no problem if it's not my house.
Just don't tell me the evidence. is all I'm
Yeah.
asking.
So the reason why you don't do this is there's some theories behind.
You have to live there?
Well, no, it's the fact that if it is something intelligent and you give it
Permission.
well, not necessarily permission, but
Access.
acknowledgement that it's there, it can now try to interact more. No different than if you were being ignored and then somebody all of a sudden said your name, you're going to turn. Well, it's the same other way around. So there's that fine line of not actively throwing things out there. That's also why a lot of people don't say you should not be provocative and provoke, because especially in a residential where people have to live there, that's like a big no-no, because like, you know, now you got a pissed off thing running around that you.
Well, my only go to bed feeling okay about everything is that I blame you that you brought it over,
and it
because
goes back with him.
it always seems to happen when you're here.
Yeah, because it's never happened when he's not here and you're upstairs.
That was like 5-6 years ago,
Still
and
happened.
it could have been the glare off my glasses, looking at TV, watching TV.
No, his explanation is it was a preemptive episode because it knew Larry was eventually going to be here, or Parachum was eventually going to be here.
You know what? I'm going to go with that.
Yeah. It was a time slip.
It makes me feel better.
It was a time slip. The ghost just was like, oh, Parachum's supposed to be here, and was like, oh, wait, I'm early.
And
my bad. And that's why I left.
And have we concluded that the shadow figure in your hallway that's peeking out through the bathroom, we feel like it was an invisible person, maybe a thing that does probing, that was checking on you and saw someone else thinking someone was in on his action, so he got pissed off and took off?
And you wonder why I have to edit.
Oh, you edit this?
But who's to say that wasn't something following me from here?
Oh, I'm pretty sure. Because it was at your house and you were just hanging
it was
out.
here and followed me to my place.
Yeah, as long as it followed, he's fine.
That's
what he's saying. He's totally okay with that.
Because you're like an open book. Like, hey, let's follow this guy.
Well, you are like a magnet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think those are...
Yeah, you're a magnet.
Chick magnet.
That's it. That's
the amount of roosters you can get around you is amazing.
Okay, so let's get back to what you were talking about.
So we were talking about the Bloody Benders of Cherryvale, Kansas, and
Which
before
is
we
really
south,
just people, people though,
eastern
really.
Kansas corner. Yeah, no, they were the.
If you want to look into it, people, I want to put a word of caution out that you're gonna read stuff, hear stuff that's just absolutely.
I'll be honest. YouTube videos are a little bit better because there's no photographic evidence. It's somebody talking. To me, it's more impactful when you're actually reading.
There are a couple of historical photos of them doing the initial dig ups.
Yeah. Oh, there are.
Yeah, and it's disturbing.
It is.
So yeah, I mean, what we're talking about is a very disturbing thing that ties into one of them was a spiritualist, thought she could speak with the dead and a few other things,
which basically tells you she's nuts anyway.
Yeah, she was
fair.
Yeah, free love back in the 1860s was like unheard of.
Right.
So
she was a succubus, a literal definition of a succubus.
Well, let's think about it. I mean, they found I don't know how many, and you probably know, you guys know more about this than I do. How many men they found with their genitalia?
There was
absolutely destroyed.
I believe over half of them had them.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So,
and you're talking about 11 bodies.
Drawing these. That's just my opinion why that happened.
Well,
yeah, no, I thought it was a good opinion.
And you brought up a good point during break that we didn't get on camera, that it might not have been her that was mutilating. It might have been the supposed husband, John Jr., that was upset and pissed off that she was giving her ass up.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to get these bad guys back in the afterlife.
Because that's something else that everything I could look up.
Or do it while they're alive.
Yeah.
Or, Jesus Christ.
I mean, because they don't
think
know.
About it.
Because they don't have.
They don't know. Right?
They don't know if it happened after death or before death because they didn't have that technology back then.
You're 100%.
That's even worse.
The other thing is,
twisted.
I could not find anything. It was always single men. The one had a daughter with him, but that's because he was widowed. So this starts going to be, here's your profile. They weren't doing it with, so maybe it was her.
But this, so yeah, that's a valid point. But look at the day and age that we're talking about. How many children and women were traveling alone during that time?
Very rare.
So, who was mostly traveling by themselves?
Men.
And you brought up the point that they would only do it if they were by themselves.
Yep. They weren't doing families.
So I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah, no. So this also leans into something else. If it was a whole family moving, you would think they'd have a bigger score if they did that, because you would have more stuff to sell. You'd have.
Well, they'd be more supplied, though, right? You're going to supply enough to take care of your family for the journey, not necessarily have to depend on a place to stop in, right?
But I mean, you have to stop eventually. I mean, your wagon's only so big, so that's why I was wondering. If it wasn't they were targeting men because they're not really looked after as much. Like a whole family disappears, people start asking questions.
Absolutely.
But a single guy traveling.
I'm just throwing this out there, but. As sick and demented as we can imagine they were, what if they did have some moral code? Like, we don't touch women, we don't touch children.
Oh, they did.
But they did touch children.
They did.
Well, technically they didn't touch them, they just buried them alive.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, they're we're in hyperbole.
Think about it. You're a little child. I have grandkids. I have kids. You have kids.
Yeah.
I said you have kids.
I hope I don't have kids.
Not that you're aware of. Okay, how horrible would that be for
And
children?
to me, well, and that's why we're talking about it's not self-defense. It is they were
Absolutely evil.
Evil.
Absolutely
And even
evil.
even if it was just the junior, the fact that the parents and his wife covered it up makes him just as evil.
It's horrific, guys.
Yeah. But I mean, the reality of it is everything leads. It was a whole family effort to make this happen, because the female's not going to be able to drag full-grown. These were full-grown men that they were carrying out and dropping and burying.
Yeah.
You know, it would take and done fairly quick. So I mean, you're talking about a lot of effort in night. You know.
So, in your guys' opinions,
Bless
bless
you.
you. Well,
He doesn't mean it because he's agnostic.
yeah.
See, the universe take care of you.
He meant Gesundheit.
So, in your opinions, I don't even remember what I was going to say now. Thank you
I'm
very
so
much.
sorry. No, we should probably stick with profiling.
Profiling.
That's what
Okay.
that's what we're
That's
doing.
what I was going off of.
So, I can't remember if it was in the 50s or 60s, the FBI started a fringe division on profiling people that were incarcerated that committed horrendous crimes.
That was actually the 70s. That's true.
It was multiple. It was one guy. It was multiple, and he killed his mother as well.
That was Kemper.
No, the FBI. Have you not seen the show Mindhunters?
Yeah.
That's
that
what
was
I'm
in
talking
the
about.
50s or 60s. That wasn't the 70s.
Oh, let's look that up.
Let's Google that. 'Cause
Let's fix that for these people.
Well,
Kemper.
I'll continue talking.
Yeah.
You look that up.
And also tell your friend that. Let us know when he's here. Before we let my wife won't freak out if he walks through the door.
Okay.
She might shoot him.
So,
I'm just gonna hear and talk to you people. While these two are doing great research for us. We appreciate you watching.
So Ed Kemper, who was the main one, who was I didn't realize he was born in 1948. Murdered 7 women and 1 girl between May 1972 and 1973.
That's him.
So it was in the mid 70s when they started Mindhunter.
okay. So
There was divisions. that were-
No, when you're married, you're wrong all the time.
You're just off. So FBI has been doing stuff, but the first idea to profile to try to get what they were thinking
was in the 70s.
was in the 70s, which kind of scary because that's only 50 years.
I know, right?
It's not that long, guys.
No.
So they came up with all of these different profiles, and I don't have them off the top of my head, for the way people would act, like out of crime of passion and all this stuff. How would you guys categorize the Benders if you had a chance to like look at?
They were psychopaths.
Yeah.
They had no
100%.
They had no moral. So
Moral compass.
you say that I say that, but what's weird is the fact that most of the people were found with an undershirt, just an undershirt, no socks, no shoes, no underwear, but an undershirt on them to cover their chest, but not.
Is that because they were getting free love and they had their clothes off when they were murdered? I'm just throwing that out there.
I know everybody assumes it's because there's no real evidence of they were being smashed while they're eating. It's all the stories afterwards that they assumed, and they found the hammers.
Because
and
of
all
the
that.
black curtain and some of the stories of the people like, oh, I remember this
But
one time.
the profile in that, when you think about it, there was something. The fact that they didn't slice the child's throat or bash it in the head, they just buried it, or them.
It's so easy to say when we're talking about a child. So it's really
it's
hard.
like when you actually think of it as a child,
And that's what
being buried alive.
That's what F's me up, right?
And it's so there.
I'm not crying. I just got sniffles.
There is something there in the profile that there is something that the mutilation of the genitalia. They were only doing single men or men that were traveling basically by themselves, other than the one child.
Maybe she was abused as a child, rape victim. I mean, these are all things.
And that's what they would kind of go
come
down
out
and try to figure out why. Because first you figure out why they're doing it. what's the connection between all of them? You know, they're all single travelers. They didn't seem to pick families. There's only one with the outlier. You know, but they very little remorse because they did it multiple times. There's over 11 that they know of. There's probably they know what I think 5 other bodies were found before any of this was ever recorded, and they never caught them. So it doesn't. I mean, they may have stopped, but generally, that type of person doesn't until they get caught, or they're killed by somebody else.
It really makes you think. You know, at first, and I'm so glad you. I'm not glad you went down that hole, but you did. I thought it was just a money grab. Hey, we're only getting 25 cents for a meal when they come by, and maybe if we're lucky, we'll sell $1 worth of general goods to them, right? Why not kill them, get all their money, because we know they're loaded, because they're traveling, they have all their wares with them. Let's get all their possessions, let's get all their money, and let's leave them.
Yeah, so there was some thought process behind it.
Yeah, so that was my thinking at first, but as you started talking about the child and the things these guys went through, just now your little rant you went on, I'm not calling it a rant, I think
you just did, but know we're okay.
I didn't mean to cheapen what you just said, because it just hit me like, man, this could go deep. This could have been, this could have been people that were sexually abused as kids, and so
there's a lot of stuff to that profile. So
it's really hard to profile, and I'm not a professional. I wonder how they would profile.
None of us are. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I just wanted to get your guys'
I didn't
thoughts.
even think about that. There may be profiles on that. I mean, because a lot of people do that with older case. I mean, that's something we could research, see if somebody ever did a profile on it.
That's interesting.
Because with the 11 bodies that they found and with most of the evidence that they have, they could at least come with a basic conclusion. That'd be kind of interesting.
So if you're watching, I'd like to know what you guys
think.
I mean,
absolutely.
Even if you want to go down that road, it was really hard for me too. But I'm kind of a sensitive person, right, when it comes to certain things, and this really affected me.
So do you think that area with all that trauma, do you think there's residual?
I think.
There has to be.
For as traumatic as that happened, I think there would be.
I would that dark and
I would be happy to
stay in the land.
I would be happy to set up camp, not stay in the building, but outside where that area is, and just put film everywhere. And I don't know if I would even want to walk it, to be honest with you, Larry.
Yeah, put meters around it. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
It would, yeah.
I mean,
kind of like Gettysburg, how they film it. And that would be interesting.
I didn't think about it. We probably could talk to them and say, hey,
can we set up some night vision cameras? I mean, it's not like
we don't want to. Yeah,
we could just set up some game trail cams.
Well, the night vision and all that, and just tell them that, hey, we don't want to disturb anything, but we want to set up cameras to see and K2 meters and
grab
other
some Doritos, some bloaty chips.
It's in
get some Buffalo Trace.
It's an open field, so we can also skywatch at the same time.
Oh shit!
It's a bam bam.
So I wanna drag this
further
down the timeline.
Beat that horse.
Jesus.
Sorry. I don't.
Kate might have.
Yeah, she might have been doing donkey shows.
So
there was no evidence of donkeys. Just a cow and a pig.
Just straight fucking horses. She skipped middle school.
Yeah, sorry. As you were saying, Prairie Chump.
And this is why some of us have attachments.
She went straight to college. Why, in your guys' opinion, why do you think that it's not talked about today? Why it's not taught in schools? Why it's not public?
How do you talk about this in school, Larry?
But
Parachute.
Well, the trauma events. I was surprised that it's not talked about a little bit in high school or college.
Yeah.
I would not. I get why you wouldn't want to go in depth because it is pretty traumatic when you start looking at what they did to the bodies. But the fact that it's not brought up, like, hey, this is one of the first serial killer families ever documented, and it happened in this area of Kansas. Some of it may be because Kansas doesn't want to have that recognition.
But so going
reputation.
Yeah, so going
reputation.
Going one a little further.
We're good with basketball. About that, we don't.
But they didn't talk about
Go Wildcats.
So people don't talk. I mean, it's well known now today because people have finally started to talk about it, and I hope that's ends up being the case with this, so we can try to figure out what happened. But take H.H. Holmes, for instance. That's not taught anywhere. That was forgotten to history in a sense.
And that's for another podcast.
And that's for another podcast. But it is now a more well-known, established documentation of serial killer in U.S. history. Why isn't this one... Because because I think this is even more atrocious.
It is. And I think that's... I know when we're done with this, I don't want to ever talk about it again. I can tell you, as a human
others
being,
when we're over there investigating it.
Yeah, other than that, yeah.
Okay.
Other than
because that's, to me, that'd be...
That's two different things, though.
Yeah, that's fair, because we're not going to be looking at those pictures and all that stuff. But, because, that's one of the things that I like us talking about this, because to me, that is should be a typical site that you might get activity that would be neat to... And even if it was residual, just something... But the fact that we don't talk about it, part of it is it kind of got glossed over because we didn't have terms for serial killers. We didn't. They were just murders, and it was during that time frame, that type of stuff. Not necessarily it's only recently that we they had 11. Now we're starting to realize that
it could be hundreds.
Yeah, more likely they probably killed 30.
Yeah, we don't know.
But there's no way to know.
It could be in the hundreds.
On that property.
On the property. Yes.
I'm talking hundreds.
Yeah, throughout their lifetime, because they don't know what happened to them. So,
and that's part of the intrigue, too.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where with the more technology and the internet and being able, people talking about it, helps bring to light that, why did that happen? No, that's the whole reason why the person bought the property like a year or two ago and is now having KU, a real engineering college, investigate it.
That's a shot at the Wildcats.
Sorry.
Hey, who did good in football this year? Not KU.
Who just beat K-State in basketball?
Well, that's another fucking story.
And my son went to that game today, and after they went to that game,
here?
They went to Arrowhead.
Oh,
I watched the Arrowhead game, yeah.
Nah, that was like a day.
Yeah, traveling from Nixon,
well, I'm just
Missouri.
saying, though, that hell of a game. Hell of a game.
Yeah. Came by here.
Yeah.
Brought Dad a shake.
Traffic. Getting into the
stadiums. Those two good sporting events to watch.
That's pretty awesome.
But when you're young, you can do that, right?
Yeah. So, what I was getting at was not necessarily... Not necessarily well known in like historical references, but you would think that there would even be like living down in that area near Independence, like some sort of fucking urban legend or something.
Yeah, nothing came up on it.
You didn't even know about it until you were researching Bloody Kansas.
Yeah, there's a plaque that's not it.
Well, that helps.
Yeah, well, it's one of the historic site landmark. That the blend, and it talks about somewhere near there. Because they literally lost the location.
Yeah.
Like the location's been they tore everything down. There used to be a museum in Coffeyville about it.
But that wasn't
do you think people really want to keep that going? Do they really want that to be out? Some things they're just best forgotten.
Even if it's as like a warning to kids or something.
I think you'd want to keep it for historical knowledge of, and also a warning that if you cover up that much evil, people don't realize there's that evil out there. Even though that happened so long ago, that type of something...
No, it exists, right?
Something made them be that way. So...
Well, it just reminds me, and I don't mean to cut you off, and I'm sorry if I came off rude, and I know some people think I'm rude for cutting you off, and I don't mean to be that way.
What do you mean?
But why...
What do you mean?
What
do you mean?
Well, what I mean is, I have this thought in my mind. We did an investigation on Stoll Cemetery, and we went into the museum and started asking questions. She goes, what are you guys asking all these questions for? Oh, well, we want to do a piece on Stoll. And she's, no, leave it alone. Remember, she was so adamant, like, just let it go. These people have been through so much.
Well,
that's my thought process.
In my opinion, that's different because they were associating it with somewhere else that wasn't even tied to it, that was being desecrated.
Yeah, it was, and
that's a completely different horse of another color.
And to add,
in my opinion.
and that's fine. But some people just want it to go.
That horse back.
They just want it to go away. They just want it. And the reason I mentioned this because, well, I'd like to add to it. When we were talking to the lady, there was a lady in a black dress, an older lady, walking around the museum. She never left the building, but I went through that place 3 or 4 times and stuff. I never saw her again, and I didn't know if you saw a lady there as well.
No, because you never mentioned that you saw her.
Yeah.
And I wasn't paying attention.
Well, that fits the profile.
I didn't. Yeah, why would I call you?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I remember.
The person that investigates you standing 10 feet from you.
I remember you mentioning it afterwards.
Yeah.
But I don't remember seeing her.
Yeah.
I remember several people being in there.
There was a lady in a black dress, an older lady in a black dress, but I saw her by where you signed in that.
Maybe you were an extra large.
I'm a medium. So anyway,
I mean, I saw an old
but
man and
I
his
think
wife.
For me, I get why Stoll, they don't want to talk about it because there's still an active community there. There's an active cemetery. There, people still go there. Their families are still buried there. I get that. This one,
But it was also based on a lie.
yeah,
It wasn't historical.
no, but I'm just saying.
No, I get what you're saying.
I'm just trying to say, people just want to let's get over this.
yeah.
Let's not talk
but
about this.
where this happened, it's literally out in the middle of nowhere. Because 6 miles southeast from where it happened is Cherryvale. Cherryvale is a super small town.
It doesn't even exist anymore, does it?
Cherryville?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Cherryville's still a town.
Okay.
It's slowly dying off. There's only
Okay.
maybe...
Like 5 or 6 people that live there?
No, there's probably like just at 1,000 or less.
That's pretty small.
Like that. Yeah, no, it's super small. Like that. I went by and the bowling alley was for sale and shut down. And,
Oh, that's sad.
yeah. No, I mean, I go back every 5 to 10 years and check the area out. But like I said, that from a historical standpoint, I'm surprised people don't talk about it more because it's the Osage Trail.
Yeah.
But thinking about it, we don't talk a lot about the trails. Like there's a Pawnee Trail going by Pawnee Rock. There's a lot of stuff that happened over there.
Yeah.
Unless you go to these sites or research it, Kansas doesn't really talk about the frontier and even up to bloody Kansas doesn't. Other than Lawrence was burned down twice, we don't really talk about the massacre of Lacine. We don't talk about
Blackjack, the Battle of Blackjack.
Doesn't talk about
Nothing.
There were Confederate soldiers killed by Indians by independence.
So why is that, guys?
So
it's all pretty close to the same area.
No, it's all this whole
I lived in Osawatomie, Kansas for a while because my dad was the city manager there for a while. I went to 5th grade and half of 6th grade there, but he lived there longer than that. John Brown's cabin that he lived in is in the center of the city park. I remember going there as a kid, and it was free to go. Like, you had to sign in and shit, but it was free to go through and walk through, and you could see like where he lived and all that kind of stuff. People that lived in Osawatomie were the fucking cabin that he grew up and lived in.
Had no idea.
Didn't even know who John Brown was. And it's like, really? Like, seriously? He's one of the, in my opinion, one of the biggest parts
That's how
of the Civil War.
Well, he's the reason why Kansas is a free state.
Yeah.
Well, I can answer to that this is everywhere. When I went to Maine, I went to Newport to see the Newport Tower. You know what the Newport Tower is, right? So Newport Tower's been on the map since the 1200s. Marco Polo had it on a map.
Where was this at?
Newport. Maine, Rhode Island area, Newport.
And it's been there since the 1200s?
1200s. This tower out in the middle field. It's on a map that Marco Polo, you can look it up. He was mapping the ocean, and he shows this tower on this. You know, he drew in a tower on the sun off the coast that he saw, and they believe.
I've never fucking heard of this.
This is fantastic. This ties in with the ties in with the Knights Templars.
Oh,
so I wanted to
Oak Island even.
I wanted to see the Newport Tower. It was a bucket. And I have pictures of it on my phone.
How'd you find out about it?
Well, I'm a Templar.
He's old.
I'm a Templar guy. I love reading history. So
when you're there,
and I knew it was there. So me and my wife, we made it a point to find it. So we're driving all over, Maine and Rhode Island trying to find. So we get into Newport. I'm looking for it and I can't find it. I'm at the ocean. I'm like, where the hell is it? Well, I've seen it on TV and I've seen documentaries on it. They're trying to say, oh, it's an old windmill. Well, no, windmills, they have 3 arches. This has, it's like 6 arches. Then it has a window that lines up with the winter solstice. So when the moon comes up, a beam of light comes through. It hits a shadow box that has an egg carved into it, which is part of the Knights Templar tradition. And it was built up so high, and it has slots all around it. And you can see where it had different floors. And they all know it's just a windmill. No, you don't make windmills like that. And by the way, this has been around since like the 1100s, right? The 11th century. So, and it was on the maps to prove that. And so we went to find it. And I'm looking around. So we're in Newport. And finally I pull it and I go, look at the guy and I go, hey, I'm looking for the Newport Tower. Can you tell me where it's at? And he goes, Newport Tower? He said, I lived here my whole life. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Huh.
I go, it's a stone tower. And, I'm describing it, and it sets up with the moon solstice, and they did these tests where the moon would have been back in those days, how the light would come and illuminate the egg and everything.
Why didn't you just follow Galileo's map?
Well, I should have, right? So, anyway, he had no idea what I was talking about with what you were just now saying.
And he lived in that town.
His whole life. And he goes, well, there's this stone thing in the middle of the park up the street. I'm like, well, that's got to be it. Yeah. So we go up to the park, boom, right in the middle of the park.
Wow.
And it's fenced off.
No, because they don't want people destroying it.
Now,
right.
Yeah. Now, this is going to make me...
So I'm just saying, this is part of it.
This is going to make me sound like a big-ass cock.
Rooster.
Do you associate that with negligence in historical upkeep, or just dumb fucking stupidity?
I think it's the same thing you came across when you lived where you lived with your father.
It just
rednecks.
The people
it's just stupidity.
It's just been there, and they never looked into it. There was not an interest.
I know 2 people that lived in England, and I talked to them about going to Stonehenge, and they both said the same thing. It was too far of a trip. They both live in Kansas now. From London, it's a 2-hour drive. Back then, that was over a day trip. That was like you were, and now when I talk to them, they're like, yeah, it sounds kind of weird me saying that now, because like, 2-hour drive in Kansas is nothing.
Yeah.
But they both
that's
said
on your way to work.
Yeah. So that's what happens is it's there. Yeah. Unless, it's going to get a little tin hatty. When we took over and did the Department of Education in 1973, all education came from the government. So where you used to have more localized... interesting. So,
I'll post pictures of the stone tower.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
So where you used to have...
cigarette tower.
The schools were pretty much dictated by the state, and the state would do more localized knowledge. Once the Department of Education came in and standardized the teaching, they did national. So you lost a lot of that local knowledge. It no longer was allowed to be taught because it's not part of the curriculum. And I think that's also something, because that started 50 years ago, which it doesn't take very long for something to be forgotten about if you're not talking about. And I think also that's why you're
plain sight.
In plain sight, but I think that's why a lot of people, you start seeing more festivals and stuff, because that brings that, okay, you're not talking about it in school, we'll have a festival about it, Amelia Earhart and Atchison.
I don't think the Bloody Benders need a festival. just throwing that out there.
I could use a big bonfire and Halloween. It could be pretty fun.
Yeah. So, to close this out, I know this has been kind of all over the place, folks, with the Bloody Benders topic. If you know anything that we may have gotten wrong or missed, or you think is more fascinating about the subject,
or add to it,
add to it, please let us know in the comments. Message us, because unlike one person in the group here, I find it fascinating and still want to learn more about it. So,
and if we hear anything new, I'd love to do other updates just to talk about.
Yeah.
Eventually, hopefully they'll figure out what actually happened to them. And go from there. Like I said, there's an active archaeological dig right now. They're trying to find all the main areas, and they're looking for potential other bodies that may have been missed, because the technology with LiDAR and that is a lot better now. So hopefully, they just did a news article 7 months ago. It's wintertime now. They're not going to be doing a whole lot out there. probably midsummer, maybe we'll do another update. But like I said, I wouldn't mind trying to talk to the owner of the land and doing a night watch in mid spring or summer.
Yeah, I'd totally be down for that.
Because it's literally, I mean, it's situated far enough away from. It's kind of like in a triangle area of Cherryvale, Coffeyville, and Independence, Kansas.
The Midwest Triangle.
Could be. I mean, the amount of people disappeared. I mean, you could call that a triangle.
Happens at the Granby Triangle too.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching. Be sure to like and follow our channel. Subscribe to our channel.
It helps support us. We
check us out on.
Makes us feel better.
Yeah, it makes us feel better. Check us out on TikTok until tomorrow, January 19th, because then possibly that's not going to exist anymore. We have
Patreon,
Instagram. Yes, check out our Patreon. Subscribe to our Patreon to get extra access to stuff. Like I said, Instagram. We're on Reddit, Rumble, Twitter X or X Twitter,
Facebook.
You should take the photo of our banner and throw that at the very end.
Yeah, I can do that. So until next time,
be safe.
Keep chumming.